Hey, what's up, Mythgardians? Cool Cat here. And before we get into today's video, I have a couple of really big announcements for you here. First off, I have been finally accepted as a Mythgard partner, which doesn't really mean too much for you guys, except for the fact that I'll be able to run different contests and giveaways similar to the one that I ran for reaching 100 subscribers. I'll be able to provide different pack codes for winning these giveaways and things like that. And then the second announcement, I have officially started my Mythgard team. Me along with my partner Gunter9, we have began our Mythgard team Nephilim GG. I'll provide a lot more info for that in the description down below, but definitely join our Discord if you're interested in joining the team in different aspects. We are mostly looking for different content creators. If you have graphic design experience, that would be amazing. If you write, that would be awesome as well. Or if you are more into the competitive aspect, we're also looking for competitive team members as well. And if you just want to learn a little bit, feel free to join our Discord. We are always happy to help. There's a decent population in there already. We had just announced it a few hours before recording this right now, and it's already off to a very exciting start. But that's enough for that. Let's go ahead and hop into the video. Hey, what's up, Mythgardians? Cool Cat here, and today we are going to be going over the changes that the Harmony faction has received in the most recent Mythgard patch. Harmony being purple, as you may have noticed, a lot of the purple cards are going to be slightly different. Most of them are going to be better. They are all I think they changed about half of the purple cards, so we have quite a bit to go through, so let's go ahead and hop right into it. So to start it off, we're looking at Defy Death. They have changed the mana cost. It now costs 0 mana, so all you have to have open at the end of your turn for Defy Death to trigger is just 2 purple gems, which is going to be a lot easier, and it's going to be a lot less telegraphed than leaving 2 mana and 2 purple gems, so that opponents may play into that a little easier. Let's see, so I think it's definitely going to help. I don't think it will see too much more play in that regard, but it definitely, will see play in some of the slower purple decks. Let's see, next we have Divine Compass. You can get this card from either Sniffer or Night Market. What they did, it used to cost 1 mana. They changed that to be completely free, so it's going to be a free cast for Divination 3, and that's going to be pretty good. I don't think Sniffer is going to see too much play. Sniffer is not a terrible card by any means, but I don't think that it is going to be run too much. Most of the 1-drops in purple are already pretty solid, like Racer and Shadow and like Steam Bun, and if you're running it with another color, that color most likely has a better 1-drop already, like Parsa Recruits or like Shrogi Pup. And next we have the Tongfoot Soldiers. They gave this minion 1 extra attack. I don't think it's going to be good enough to be run still. It's really easy to dodge, unless you're able to give it rush somehow, like maybe fast lane or something like that. I don't think that this card is very playable. And then moving on, we have Steam Bun. They added an action to it. You can use your standard action and spend 2 mana to add another Steam Bun to your hand. So this is going to be kind of interesting. I don't know how often this interaction is going to be used. In cases where, the matchup is slow enough to warrant using 3 mana to play another 1/1. I don't think you would actually want to be drawing those extra cards because, if the matchup is slow enough, you'll just end up going into fatigue a little quicker, and I'm not sure exactly how useful that's going to be. Plus, your Steam Bun would have to survive another turn and then be able to, trigger that action utility to make sure that you're able to actually get that Steam Bun into your hand. And I either don't think one, that you would want that Steam Bun to stay on your board for an extra turn and risk missing out on that initial draw, and 2, spend 2 mana for a 1/1 and then spend another mana to play that 1/1 and then spend another mana to draw a card. That doesn't seem very efficient to me. And then moving forward, we have Jaded Courier. What they did is they swapped the Awaken effect to an at the end of your turn effect, so you can keep this card on the board. They also gave it Lurker so that it's easier to protect. So at the end of your turn, it deals 1 damage to your opponent and you gain 1 life. This seems okay. It's definitely not going to be a win condition by any means, I don't think, but it is going to give you a little bit of extra life gain, and it's going to do a little bit of chip damage to the opponent turn after turn while this is still alive. I could see this seeing play in a couple of decks, but like I said, the current 1-drops in purple are just, really just too strong for this to be replacing them. But in specific spirit-based decks, I could see this being run. And then we have Compulsory Curse. So what they did is they switched the effect from at the end of your turn to the start of its turn. So at the start of the minion's turn that you play this card on, it deals 1 damage to its controller and adjacent minions. This is slightly better. So basically at the they won't be able to kill off the minion that you have cursed, so that the effect doesn't go off. The effect is going to go off at the start of the turn. So you can guarantee get that AoE ping and that face damage. I'm not sure, if this is going to be run. There's not too many 1-drops or 1 health minions in the meta right now, so I don't know how effective it's going to be. It could be very, very strong going into like an opponent's winter if they're on Turn of Seasons to get 2 damage on the surrounding minions. And generally, in Mythgard, people don't tend to stack their minions together, so I'm not sure, how often you're able to get a lot of value out of this. And moving forward, we have Mind Freak. This card was already really good. What they did is they made it so that the card that you choose to play this card onto becomes unburnable. So basically you're just clogging up your opponent's hand with a card that they're not going to play, or not going to even be able to play for quite a few turns. And in the right cases, they won't be able to play that card at all if you make it go above 10 mana. I'd actually had that happen to me. Somebody used my 2 Mind Freaks on my Armageddon Angel, so I just wouldn't be able to play that Armageddon Angel at all because it costs 13 mana, and I'm not able to burn it, so it's just going to be pretty much just a dead card in my hand. It's not going to be able to be played at all. Mind Freak is going to be a very strong card moving forward. It was already pretty good, but since the rest of purple was kind of weak, it just wasn't seeing too much play for Mind Freak to even be included in any decks. But I could see Mind Freak becoming a staple 1-drop in a lot of purple decks moving forward. Let's see, next we have Pocket Instance. Pocket Instance, they made it so that the occupying minion now has 1 extra attack. That's going to be pretty strong, I think. I liked running Pocket Instance in the past in some purple rainbow decks. One of the hardest things about Pocket Instance is the fact that it sacks itself after after it's been used. But it's going to be very, very strong to trade up some minions and protect those minions as well if the opponent was looking for an easy trade with like just a chump blocker or something along those lines. Just throw down Pocket Instance, you protect that minion, you clear their minion, so that you can make sure that you're able to keep a strong board. So I think Pocket Instance is going to be a little better. That 1 attack definitely helps with the Alpha Strike. I don't see it seeing run regularly, but maybe in some purple rainbow decks for sure. And along with that, we have Grandma Meng's Tea House. I could see this card being run a lot more now. So what it does when you create a minion in the enchanted lane, it gets stealth, and then it also gives the top minion and your deck stealth as well. But on top of that, they added this second thing. Its mana cost gets reduced by 1, so you can cheat out some bigger stuff earlier, which of course is always going to be good. The biggest issue with this is it's a 1-of, and you're going to have to get it down early to get a lot of effects out of it. So if you don't draw it, then it's just not going to be too helpful. But of course, you can say that with any card. Next, we have the Corrupt Prayer Wheel. Whenever a spirit minion is created, deal 1 damage to your opponent, and then they added the second part, you gain 1 life. So this is going to be similar to the Jaded Courier. I could see this being used in a spirit archetype deck. I don't think it would be a win condition, as it is a mythic rarity card, so you're not going to see it in a decent majority of your games, but it's definitely going to give you some sort of healing, some sort of pings, in a very spirit heavy deck. You have a lot of spirits in purple. You have your racers, you have your sword saints, you have your Baku boogeyman, just a ton of different spirits. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but you can definitely get this to trigger quite a few times, even in the same turn. Let's see, and next we have Yojimbo. They made its effect cost 1 as opposed to 2, so you can play this 2 mana 2/4 with Defender to protect some minions, and then each turn you're able to make it lose Defender for only 1 mana as opposed to 2 mana. I don't see this card seeing too much play. The 2-drop slot is kind of a little full right now, I think, at least if you're pairing it with another color. For example, orange, you're going to be running Xerxian Recruiter, or you're going to be running in blue a Thane, just different things like that. In green, you're going to be running things like Born Again. So the 2-drop slot is already pretty stacked for some dual color decks. For a 2-drop and a mono purple, this may see play, but using mana to attack with your minions isn't going to be the best use of your mana. Not having that, it's basically reads have 1 less mana each turn if you want to attack, and that's not going to be very good for tempo, and Mythgard is a very board-based, tempo-based game. All right, and next up we have Insatiate. They essentially gave Insatiate Piercing. That's the only change. I don't think it's strong enough. This minion is pretty good. Giving minions Ephemeral is going to be great against things like Red, Orange, Heaven, and Hades, against like Journey of Souls. But I don't know if Piercing is going to help it too much. With 2 attack, it's generally able to get through any sort of armor outside of things like Sea Haven. But I think if they have a Sea Haven on board, then you have a little bit more to worry about, than being able to kill off 1 minion on that Sea Haven. But in mono purple decks, I could definitely see this being the premier 2-drop. Giving minions Ephemerals, very strong in most cases, but I'm not sure if Piercing is going to help it overcome things like Xerxian Recruiter, things like Thane. See, moving forward, we have Respawn. So what it does is, instead of giving the minion Ephemeral, the minion no longer has Ephemeral, so you can play Respawn on the same minion a couple of times. You can, have it go to your Boneyard and come back, different things. I think Respawn, it's a kind of a build-around card. I wouldn't say that it's just something that you throw into a deck. There's usually some better choices than Respawn for some recursion opportunities. But Respawn's definitely a powerful card. There's a lot of uses in it, but I'm not sure if this will make it just a very a auto include in all purple decks. Let's see, next we have Knives in the Dark. So basically, before attacking in combat, it deals 2 non-combat damage to the defending minion. This is good, but they also added that it gives the minion Lurker now, so you can use Knives in the Dark to protect current minions that are on board by giving it Lurker, and then it also deals 2 non-combat damage to the defending minion, which means it gets around things like Yahui or Short Stag, but you also have to keep in mind that it doesn't deal any damage to warded minions, so that's always something to think about. But giving the minion Lurker, I could see that having some benefits. I don't know if Knives in the Dark is strong enough to be playable, but at the 2 mana slot, it just seems slightly slow. You can use it for some good trades, but I'm not exactly positive on how much more play it's going to see than it has in the past. And then moving forward, we have Juiced. Juiced now still gives the 3 minions +1/+1, but it also gives them a move action. So this is pretty strong. It's similar to playing Impel. I could see. So it's similar to playing Impel, but it also gives a minion +1/+1. Juiced is now perfectly fine to just play on one minion. You don't have to play it on even 2 minions or 3 minions. 2 mana for Impel is going to be right on track, and it also gets +1/+1. Using this on different minions with teleport's going to be very strong as well. I could see this seeing play in something with like Wyvern and Shinobi of Smoke, or even just any of the Shinobis at all, just so they can guarantee get that breach effect or trade into exactly what they want to hit. And next we have Peach of Life. They basically made it so you just have to have 6 minions to draw a card. This is going to be pretty good. I've noticed a lot of times where I've only had 6 minions, so I wouldn't be able to get that extra card draw from Peach. I do see Peach Control making a comeback with these purple changes with the Peach of Life buff. I know I've been messing around with a version on ladder that I think I stole from NKL, a top champion level player who's very, very great at building different decks, one of the best deck builders in Mythgard. Yeah, I think Peach of Life is going to be a lot stronger now. I think Peach Control is definitely going to make a pretty good comeback. Let's see, and now we have Kite Glider. It looks like they changed Kite Glider. I'm not sure if it would be considered a buff, but they definitely gave it more of an identity. So it's before you gave a minion agile until the end of your turn. So basically you use Kite Glider for you to make your big guys smack their face. Now it's give a minion with 5 or less strength, agile, and swift until the end of your turn. So what this looks like to me is they want you to be able to use your smaller minions to dance around the board, similar to something like a Bridgeway Troll, or similar to something like just having Impel for 1 mana that also gives agile. So I could see Kite Glider starting to see play with some aggressive Shinobi based lists to get those breach effects, to get that teleport effect, but I don't know if it's going to be a purple staple like a lot of the other cards. See, next we have Zen Archer. They have nerfed the stats. They added an extra mana gem requirement, but they have changed the effect. So it used to be whenever a minion with agile attacks, it takes damage. Now it's just whenever a minion attacks, it takes 1 damage. So this is going to be pretty strong against a lot of the 1-drops. It's going to be pretty strong if you get 2 of them on board against red-orange specifically. It also has Lurker, so it's decently easy to protect, but it's only a 1/2 for 3, which is really bad tempo wise. It gets killed by ignition, so that's another thing to look out for. And then the Phoenix Feather that it gives, it used to give a friendly minion Slayer 2, now it gives a minion Agile. So it'll help your big guys swing face. Looks like a decent replacement for Kite Glider in those styles of lists. But I'm not sure exactly how much play Zen Archer is going to see still. Like I said, it's a 1/2 for 3, not the best tempo, and its effect is easily mitigated by just playing things with more than 1 health. Which I know in some cases is going to be a little easier said than done, but if you're playing Zen Archer and you go into a deck that you specifically counter, then, you pretty much deserve that win. And now we have the Shinobi changes. They have changed Shinobi of Fire. The Flame Scroll now costs 1 mana. I could see this starting to see play in some of the slower mid-range decks as some closing potential. Stacking those scrolls with your Agile minion. You can also throw something like Pentacle of Flavors on there for some extra burst potential. And then having the just stacking scrolls, dealing 3 damage for 1 mana over and over and over, just to get that final burst of damage. See, next we have the Shinobi of Wind. They swapped it and no longer has teleport, now it has Swift. Personally, I see this as a nerf. It's a lot easier to block now. You're not able to teleport it around the board like you used to. If your opponent plays a minion across from the Shinobi of Wind, you're still going to have to use Impel to move it over a couple of slots to get that breach effect off, so it's not very different. I just don't see this as a buff personally. And then we have Shinobi of Smoke. This one is going to become pretty key in a lot of purple lists. I think it's going to be the premier purple 3-drop. They buffed its stats. It's now a 3/3, and it now has teleport as opposed to Swift. So it still doesn't take retaliatory damage when attacking. It no longer dies to things like Trapezis, things like Racer, things like Ignition. And now it has teleport, so you're able to kill the things across the map with things like Impel, Juiced, Kite Glider. They gave you plenty of tools to make this happen. I could see Shinobi of Smoke taking over that 3-drop slot in a lot of purple lists. And then we also have Hotel Barkeep. They buffed this minion. They now has +1 attack. It's a 3-mana 3/4, which is vanilla stats, and it also still gives you that free power use as well with the powerful ramen. So this is going to also see a lot of play in that 3-drop slot, kind of rounding out your 3-drops in most purple based lists. And they buffed Balance. It's now 3 mana instead of 4. This card's been seeing a lot of play by people that I've noticed in the Discord, people on ladder. I'm not sure how great it is still. You still have to be either behind on board or in a pretty bad spot with your opponent having a lot of minions on board. They'll have to have at least 3 minions down to make this better than Brainstorm, which is already something nobody runs because it's not that great. So in order for them to have 3 minions on board, they either have to be really small minions, which could happen, or you just have to be behind on board. And paying 3 mana for that, I don't think will bring you back or really give you too much opportunity to close out any games or anything like that. But of course, a lot of people are running it. I'm sure they're seeing success if this many people are running it, so we'll see how this one plays out. See, next we have Muttmorphous. What they did is they have changed the stats. Now instead of making it a 2/2 sheep, it's now a 1/1 sheep. So I could see this start to see some play. I know it's a really great counter to some necromantic decks changing their Hopeless Necro into a sheep. Now it's just going to be a 1/1 sheep. I could see this seeing at least one of in a lot of purple lists, if not 2 of. There's a lot of threats under 5 mana in the meta right now. I could see Muttmorphous start to see at least 1 or 2 inclusions in a lot of purple decks. We have Neo Gangam. So what they did is they made it 3 mana and 1 purple gem instead of 3 mana and 2 purple gems. This gives it some splashing potential to give some minions warded in some other lists. I don't think this card is going to see very much play based on this buff. It's probably going to be included in most purple rainbow lists, but outside of that, I'm not sure exactly how strong this card is. And next we have 5 Spirit Gate. What they did, it's still going to be the same, but they're not going to increase the mana cost on the card that you recur. I think this is just a pretty standard change. The card wasn't playable due to that. I don't know if it's going to be playable still. It could definitely see some play in some spirit-based decks. But the difference between something like 5 Spirit Gate and something like a Shroud, with Shroud you don't have to spend that mana to recur the minion, you just have to use your energy. So with 5 Spirit Gate, the minion you recur, you're most likely not going to be able to play it on that turn, so it'll give you a lot less tempo, in exchange for some additional hand size. And next we have quite possibly one of the most exciting changes, Emperor Koi. They pretty much just completely revamped this card. It's now a 4 mana 3/4, which is a little understated, but on Awaken it gives the top minion in your deck +2/+2 permanently. So that's going to give you a lot of tempo on the following turn. And also with things like Sniffer with your Divine Compass, you can essentially choose what minion gets that buff by divinating it straight to the top of your deck. I see Emperor Koi kind of filling out the 4-drop slot if you're not running the Decoy Thriving Shade combo, which we'll go over in just a minute, but it's just going to be a very strong card. It's not too much of a tempo loss. A 4 mana 3/4 isn't terrible. It's definitely understated, but I could see this seeing a lot of play. Next we have Feng Shui Master. They buffed this attack, so now it's a 3/3. The main issue with Feng Shui Master is that in order to destroy the enchantment, it has to be unoccupied, and oftentimes the most threatening enchantments are going to be occupied, so you're not going to have too much of a chance to get that enchantment destroyed with Feng Shui Master. And also paying 4 mana for a 3/3 with no additional effect is never going to be the right call. It's gonna see some play if rainbows come back in droves like they did after the rainbow buff, but outside of that, this isn't gonna see much play outside of like a sideboard tournament or something like that. And next we have Decoy. They changed it. Instead of gaining 3 temporary mana and drawing a card, they basically made it to give you some incentive for the opponent to attack into the decoy. So now on demise, it still draws you a card, and when a minion attacks it, you draw an additional card. I don't think this is going to see too much play. 4 mana for a 2 card draw isn't that great, and that's conditional card draw on top of that, assuming that you're able to trick your opponent into swinging into it. And then, 4 mana for an 0/2, of course, isn't good at all. Outside of some Thriving Shade shenanigans, I don't think this is going to be very optimal. And even, within Thriving Shade shenanigans, I could see this next card being much more effective. And you're not going to be able to run all 3 of these, because that's going to really clog up your 4-drop slot, which is going to be extremely clogged up already with these purple buffs. But I just think this next card, Spiteful Mimic, is going to be a better option for Thriving Shade shenanigans. It's a 4 mana 4/4, which is very slightly understated. Usually it's going to be 5/4 or 4/5 for full stat, so you're only missing half of a stat. And also it has the energy effect as well, so when a minion attacks it, the controller discards however much energy it has at random, and then you disable the ability. So basically, instead of it drawing you 2 cards, you have the potential to make your enemy discard 2 cards, and then you'll possibly still have a body left over, which is going to be pretty key, for the strength of Spiteful Mimic. Of course, the effect does get less, less and less over time, but you'll have something decently respectable as far as board control goes once you get your initial surprise worn off. And next we have God of Gamers. Everything's going to be the same. It now costs 1 less mana, so it's no longer understated. It's going to be vanilla stats. You still get that Homeward Crown, and you still get the retaliatory damage. You don't take that when you attack. God of Gamers is going to be pretty much going to be a key card in a lot of purple decks now. I think it's very strong. The Homeward Crown itself was not changed. They updated the art. It looks pretty great now, but it still gives a friendly minion +1/+1, demise, return it to the owner's deck, placing it 3rd from the top. So you get some recursion there. You get to just replay your God of Gamers over and over again if that's what you're looking to do. You can play this on something like Armageddon Angel, like on Sapo, so that you can play those cards again and again, so that you can keep using those threats. I think God of Gamers is going to be in a really great spot, and it's really going to fill out your 4-drops in a lot of purple based lists. See, next we have Hungry Ghosts. They just gave it +1/+1. It's now a 4/5 as opposed to a 3/4. I don't think this card's going to see too much play. It gets +1/+1 when another minion dies. You can combo that with something like Racer or Rush minions in red, but at the start of your turn, it getting -1/-1, I don't think that that's going to make this card very good. Plus, you're not really able to play it out and then also play out your Rush minions to kill them off. You're going to have a board state where you can trade your minions efficiently enough to make it worth it, and I just don't see that happening consistently enough to make Hungry Ghost the right call. Let's see, next we have Pushy Oni. This card was already pretty good. 5 mana 5/5 is now a 5 mana 6/5, and you move the minion to an unoccupied enemy lane. Movement effects against your enemy is going to be pretty strong moving forward. A lot of the cards in purple that have those effects have been buffed, so you're going to be seeing a lot more of that, just making the enemy's position matter less and less, because you can pretty much dictate where their minions go. And I think a lot of people will be surprised at exactly how strong that is. I could see Pushy Oni seeing some play. In that 5-drop slot in purple is going to be a little bit more crowded with this next buff. Jinsuk Dollmaster is now a 5-drop instead of a 6-drop. This is going to be a very strong buff. You're now able to get that brand 1 turn sooner. You're able to, move your opponent's minions around 1 turn sooner, and it's just going to be a very, very strong buff for this card. They did lower its health one, but the difference really between 5 health and 6 health in Mythgard isn't going to be that much. And also it still has Lurker, so it's still going to be pretty easy to protect. I see Jinsuk being once again becoming a staple mythic in a lot of collections. Moving forward, we have Baku Boogeyman. They have lowered this mana cost down to 6. This is kind of the buff that everyone's been asking for, and we finally get it. Baku Boogeyman's going to see a lot more play. Being able to make your opponent discard a card is going to be very strong. And yourself in the purple color, you're most likely going to have an item. You're going to have like a pike. You're going to have a potion from Samuzin, something along those lines to discard as opposed to an actual card, whereas hopefully your opponent won't have that benefit, so they'll be discarding their actual cards, and coming into turn 6 or 7, their hand size may already be pretty low, so you can really take advantage of that effect. And also being able to suppress the minion in the opposite lane, it's going to be extremely strong as well. See, next we have Celestial Dragon. It's going to be the exact same, but it's now warded. So this card I could see actually starting to see a lot of play, especially with the purple buffs. A lot more people are going to be comfortable running purple, so I could see most of these purple cards seeing a lot more play, of course, but Celestial Dragon specifically, an 8/8 for 6 mana with warded, it's going to be very strong. The Ring of Eternity item basically is given to your opponent. It gives the minion immortal that you play it on, but with purple you have a few options to bounce that minion back to their hand, pretty much negating that buff. So I could see this in a lot of the aggressive lists and a lot of the mid-range lists seeing a lot of play. And then we have Diagojo Supreme. They gave this minion Swift, so it's a lot easier to choose where your 4 damage goes to on the board, as opposed to, just being able to move it down 1 slot and then, doing that one. You can now move it around 2 slots at a time to be able to use your ability to deal 4 damage to pretty much any minion across the board, along with Impel that gives you 3 lanes of movement to be able to get that damage off, which is going to be pretty key. I could see this card starting to see some play. The only downside is it doesn't give you any immediate board impact. So you have a 7 mana 6/9, you're not able to use that effect the same turn you play it, outside of things like Kolobok, outside of things like Fires of Creation, allowing you to get your mana above 10. I could see it seeing a lot more play in some slower lists, but I don't see it, really seeing play too much more than it already does based on this change. Let's see, in this next card, I could see seeing a lot more play at Perfect Grade. It now starts with 3 energy, so you can use that deal 2 damage to minions in the opposing 3 lanes. You can throw down Perfect Grade, use that ability 3 times, so you deal 6 damage to the minions in the opposing 3 lane on play. On top of that, you have an 8 mana 6/7 with armor 2, and it gains an energy at the start of your turn, and you can fully heal itself every single turn. So this is going to be extremely hard to remove outside of some very hard removal like Vicious Cycle, like Seal, and it essentially has 9 health if you're trying to remove it via damage. Even more depending on how many damage sources you need. So I could see Perfect Grade really starting to fill out the top end of a lot of those purple lists. All right, so that was my thoughts on the recent purple patch. So we'll give it a few weeks to see how the meta develops, what purple decks come out on top, what kind of fizzles out a little bit. Maybe we'll do an update video, another top 5 decks once everything kind of settles down a little bit. people find out what's good, what's not so good after these changes. But as always, like the video if you liked the content. Make sure you do subscribe for more Mythgard content, and remember to always GG for Matt.